Hello and welcome back to the Redhedge Podcast. I'm here with Alessandro Belluzzo and we are going to talk about succession and legacy. So, Alessandro, our trusted tax advisor and overall company administrator and advisor overall, we are here to talk about what you just suggested to me, succession. As is an important theme that we already talked in this podcast, but in general it is very important to me from the key man risk aspect of it to family succession and legacy, because it is the word legacy. Obviously, when someone is created something, you want to get his legacy through the family, and we have discussed it, and it is quite popular to look at it in a more practical and technological side. But what about legally and what we should be aware of when we are creating a legacy of any kind?
Of course, when you talk about these situations, is not always nice, and people are wary. They start to say, why I have to talk about death? What next? I want to discuss about today, not tomorrow. And the problem is always to say, look, you need to manage risk. So what can go wrong? And legally speaking, many things that can go wrong, like financially. And you need to plan in advance and to have the right people, the right tools, and ask yourself the right questions. So every time that we have something to talk about international succession, cross-border, different logistically different people in different countries, people at different ages, and also different phase of your business. Because sometimes you can think about in 5 years, in 10 years, in 2 years, or you want to sell, and then what about next? What about the education of my family, of my partners? What am I going to do next? These are all questions that are very much important, as much that every time you check your balance in the bank account.
This is interesting. And I think a lot changes by jurisdiction. As you said, if I'm in the UK, it's very different than if I'm in Italy or in the US. But what do you think is common to anyone, the number one rule for any family to have in mind, legally speaking, on a legal point of view? What is the number one rule that is common to everyone?
As you know, we are very international. We speak 6 languages. We have presence in different countries. Our clientele is very broad, very international. I can tell you that anyone from everywhere has the same issues. They wake up in the morning, they want to plan the day, they want to say what they're going to do next, holidays-wise, work-wise, education-wise, where they're going to live in the next year, where the kids are going to school, boarding or boarding. So actually, everybody has the same issues to plan. Maybe they're coming from different background, religion, culture, language. And it's important that you know where they're coming from and where they want to go next. I don't have any client that now has the business, the family, and the hobbies in the same country or in the same city. It's very, very different than 20, 30 years ago. When I started this job, actually, I was at university. I was working in Milan, Bocconi University. It was the first time I was talking about family businesses and their business. And it was very, very new. As you know, family businesses have been always small, not the real thing to talk about. But actually, nowadays, they're the most important part of any sector. Even through COVID, they've been more resilient than anyone else. So when you have to talk about family and their business, you need to have normally 2 tables and rules, a family constitutions, a business shareholder agreement that talks to each other to understand the role of each person, each component of the family that is within the family, within the business, outside the family, because maybe they can go and live somewhere else, they can go outside the business, they can come back. So what are the conditions for them to come back? What do you expect them to do before they're coming back to you? And what about if they don't come back and they decide to a different route? How are you going to finance their business, their dreams? And what about you? Because it's very common. Sometimes you think about, I will give my shares to my son, and I'm sure that it will do better than me or anyone else. It's not always true.
What is the most common mistake, do you think, across all the people that you supported in those years? What is the most?
Don't plan in advance. Don't think that people and things and the framework can change. So maybe the same person that 5 years ago is different because it went through education, it went through emotions, it went through life, divorce, death, and all this stuff. They can change the life pattern. So you need to be ready, aware, and also you need to be able to talk to people that you trust, and they can talk back to you. And the most important thing is that you understand what the people are telling you. Because if you're not educated enough to understand what is a trust, and I can tell you, a trust is the most important, blah, 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 but it's not true. You need to understand what is the trust, what are the trust limits, and why are good for you or not. And you cannot trust just myself. You need to trust yourself, your advisor, and you need to have someone that also will be able to tell you through experience what they've experienced by using a trust instead of an holding company or the mix of the two. And nowadays, it's very important that you get knowledgeable, I think, and aware that solutions are for many, but the same solution is not for everyone.
Absolutely. I think we discussed this in the past offline, but my main problem, and I think we share this problem with many, is that when there is one key man doing a lot in the family, not in the business, but which can be same business or family, we tend to be very dynamic. We do things and we don't put the information of what we've been doing in a place. So we don't track whatever we have done in a way that if I disappear tomorrow, my successor will be struggling to put everything together with the risk of losing part of this information and ways. And so my personal solution was to utilize a technological support to do that, to map my wealth and in general to give an instrument to my family in case for many angles. From the first angle was how did I manage in certain situation the wealth? Where do I want to grow this wealth, in my view, in which cycles, which asset class, and general indication, which is not just a legal suggestion on what to do, which can be complemented with a tax efficiency and what can you do with what, which is very, very important. And I think so those tools are key. But the problem of those tools is the privacy. No one wants to show anyone what they have, and especially everything. The trend is to divide with advisor a little piece to each. And again, the solution of putting everything in one place is to make it invisible to anyone but you and create access to the advisor. For example, if I need that on the UK company and I have a UK tax advisor, I will show him what is just the company and just a restricted access to this. I think it is a solution. But how do you feel from a tax advisor, for example, hat? I know you wear many. Yeah. You still need a comprehensive picture of everything, right?
Especially because I'm still young, but not too young. I experienced what has happened in our industry. In the past, people were exactly doing what you're just suggesting, going to the Italian advisor for the Italian stuff, go to the Swiss advisor maybe to keep things aside and hide by the system, going to the UK advisor for the UK advice, and then forgetting pieces. First of all, privacy is no longer a matter. It's no longer possible to hide anything to anyone. If you want to hide something, then you have a problem. If you want to plan, you need to say anything to everyone that you trust. Mm-hmm. And what we learned together is that many people, they're confusing like the wealth management with just the finance, just the money, how much I got in the bank account, how much my portfolio has done, what are my financial risks. By reality, the tax and legal risk, if you were to die tomorrow and you have a property in the UK, you pay 40% on inheritance tax. And if you don't have the money, either the house is sold at auction or you need to put your money from the portfolio to pay the HT for your heirs to enjoy the property again. So talking about the portfolio performance and having to pay 40% of a house that is 3 million, then you lose half of the portfolio maybe. So if you don't combine the things together with different expertise, but they understand your goals, your risks, and your cultural background, because not everyone has the taste of art, or not everyone has the taste of cars or properties, but many, they do investment just for the sake of, I like it, I'll do it. And they don't think about the risk. Or they go through a divorce, and instead of going through a divorce in Italy or in France or in Spain, they go through divorce in the UK, and they get half of their wealth taken away. Rightly or wrongly, I'm not saying, is an option. So again, maybe it's too narrow that you think about just money, finance, and investment. And maybe it's too narrow that you think about, I'll show just the tax side to my tax advisor, to my lawyer, I just talk about the legal stuff. I think the key is to combine and to put under one roof an element of technology, of course, the future, trust, and transparency. Because it's better to be transparent and to understand the risks and what you want to do next. Because if you try to hide your position, your view, your aims, your wishes, at the end of the day, you're going to make a mistake.
No, I agree. I mean, taking my personal situation, I was completely fully focused on the risk of the portfolio itself, which I think it is extremely important, especially if you are not well diversified. There is many catalysts which will cause serious problem, but not to assess in any legal risk. I think none of those, I don't want to get into that too much, but I guess all the oligarchs in Russia that were sanctioned in Europe were not maybe aware of this risk, and they, having an assessment of that potential.
But even people that now are taking seriously enough, they should, all the communication that are coming from the different tax authorities, HMRC, the Italian, the French, the US, about the exchange of information was something that before 2015 wasn't there. And now, if you were to do an investment, whatever, a bank is obliged to communicate to your tax authority where you're resident. So if you have an investment in Luxembourg and you're resident in the UK, the Luxembourg bank will communicate by what we call CRS, the information to your tax authorities. Then you will find in a letter that they know that you have an investment in Luxembourg. Nothing wrong with that. But you need to justify how, why. If you were to make money, you need to declare the money. So the world has changed completely.
And how do you see, because we are in London, we are both very much established here. I don't foresee myself anywhere different from here. We've been through a few changes. I know that you are on top of most of the big fiscal changes here. How do you see England in general as a place for the next few years?
I mean, the UK is in a different place. London is London. People now maybe are less European, but you see a lot of people around. Take my office. Only in London we have 30 people. Out of 30, only 10 are from Italy, with an Italian surname actually. The others are not anymore. Take the clientele. Before was 80% European, now is less than 50. I don't see a problem. I see a problem of uncertainty. That is something that we never experienced in London before. So what happened with the government now is really, really important for what makes a next move for an entrepreneur, for a family that want to come and live in the UK. Visas. What we're going through is very difficult to explain to clients as well. But I see, and I still think that UK is stable, is able to adapt itself to the changes, and whatever bad news will come, because there are far less money around in the UK than before, and we have to get ourselves ready for bad news. I think they will be able to embrace the changes and move forward. Probably Brexit and COVID together, they create an effect that no one else had, because either they had COVID or other, but they didn't have Brexit and COVID together. So it's very difficult to manage, even for the country. And they were not probably prepared and ready to manage either the two. And now we pay the consequences. But overall, I feel positive because I see around that everyone is going to the same places where they used to go. Maybe there are different faces.
I think personally a bit worried about the change of government, of sides of government, really, and the taxations can scare some away, and that could be a bit catalyst. And as you mentioned, a bit of we suffer a bit before going.
Yeah, but there are choices. Then you make a choice. If you want to live in London, you know that these are the amount of tax you need to pay. If you just want to save some money, and you sacrifice maybe your lifestyle, you go to a different country, like in Italy. At the moment, is the best country for just tax scheme savings for many reasons. I don't want to go, of course, we can do another podcast on this, but there's plenty of options. You can go to Spain, you can go to Monaco, you can go to Dubai, of course, you can go. But that, what I'm saying always to people is tax enough to make you to choose and go to change your lifestyle? What about education? What about friends? What about family? What about knowledge? What about culture? I don't think tax is no longer popular to talk about tax.
Indeed. Well, I mean, one point is education, which is key for me. And obviously England, London in particular, is one of the best places to educate your legacy. And, are people discussing on it?
Very much.
Is it an important point?
Yes, very much. It's a very important point. Education is still really taken very seriously within the families, and I think it's very important to educate during lifetime your family and what they want to do next with their own kids and what they want to do then, taking the legacy of a family. Maybe they can change the investment, they can change the sector, but the legacy of a family is always there. I have examples in my client portfolio that they have changed completely what they were doing in the past. They're still, I don't mention the name, the family, and everybody knows that their approach, their way, their values has not changed, even though they changed completely their business model or even the sector. But this is what I think is important as well to learn from the UK side, where the family concept, the heritage, is embedded in the system. How to take a very important example of, think about where we are at the moment, Grosvenor Street, Grosvenor's family. The legacy will be forever because they have this embedded in the system. They know how to do it. And this is probably one of the key reasons why English law is still a key important solution for many. Think about Dubai, the FC. They decided to adopt English law. So again, for this reason, I think this country will always play a very important role.
Another subject that is very common to hear and common to many people that probably on my age bracket is succession, the exchange of wealth right now from older generation, which probably created the wealth or either
or the base.
Yes, and it is very difficult for the receivers to initiate those conversations about succession in general. The best if you are educated, for example, and you are very aware of things that are coming your way that are going to happen when the succession happens, and you understand that the setup is wrong for whatever you believe to, it is very difficult to speak with the people that owns the wealth right now. So I don't know, is it something that going through someone like you would be much an easier conversation, like sitting down together?
You need to set rules, a table, and time. Don't go to talk about this when they are working in their factory, in their office, with the telephone, watching the mobile. Go to different locations. Talk about this in the countryside, at ease, in a place that they feel open to discuss. Even when I do my appointment in my office, I have my own little room where I see people for these specific topics. And then we go to talk about this in their house or in different locations. And that's very important because there is something that people don't realize. The more you talk, the better it is. The less you talk, the less you will understand what really is important for you, for your family. And there is no need of being, oh my gosh, I'm going to say something that you just need to talk.
And that's why maybe someone like you, they acts as a 360-degree consultant. If the person that is due to inherit will come to you and say, look, I don't know how to speak with my parents. Can you help me? It's something that...
That's why we say that business is divided in advisory, litigation, because you need to advise and then you need to know how to litigate. It's very important to know the litigate and litigate well or pre-litigate to avoid the cost of the court. It can be huge. Not just on tax cases as I do. I go to court on tax cases. But there are many commercial now that can be very expensive. Again, you think about your portfolio performance, then you will pay 1 million for commercial litigation. And then we have the compliance and the business, again, to check if all the things are done correctly. The tax return, the tax compliance for the company, the financial statement, everything that is important to show for your business. And then the services and the solutions, that, again, are the one to say, okay, now that we know what you really want, and now how do you want to take this forward? Which solution would you like to take? Like go back to trust, holdings, funds, the mix of the two, family constitutions. Again, the important point is to talk with the right people and to discuss openly, and then think about that is, as everything in life, a journey.
Interesting. Maybe one of the last topic, but if you want to bring up anything different, it is a community between those that have been successful in their own fields. And, I see many examples of clubs, family office clubs where people are pitched really rather than go into exchanging point of view, because common problems will lead to common solution, and learning from peers. Really, it is something that I find very, very useful. And putting together those individuals in a way where you're not selling anything, I believe it is a key to learn.
Very
Would
much,
you agree
yes.
on this point?
That's why you can do through passions that you have in common, like, art, cars, you go to a club, you come to an event and you talk about something else, and then you end up to have a fantastic networking of people that you can share and discuss. And then values and then common sense will come up and say, okay, why don't we think about next what to do together? And again, you enrich yourself by talking and exchanging ideas with people that not necessarily they do the same job as you do, but they do maybe in a different way, from a different corner, from a different country, and they see the same thing in a different way. Again, for the cultural background, for religion background, for everything that is different, is not the same. And I think this is what is globalization. This is what is very different from the past. In the past, I think people could easily stay in their own country or in their own town and having businesses, separating businesses, not talking about the business in their own country because it wasn't transparent. And so you can say, oh, I have a business in the UK, but no one knows. I have a business in Italy and no one knows. I can keep it separate because at the end of the day, it was easier to manage. Now I think it's better to take the advantage of explaining what you do in a much more open fashion, because transparency is key. Also because everything that you do gets into the socials, gets into the reputation. And if you do something wrong, you don't pay the tax, or you create a problem with the culture of your office, or you have harassment, or all this stuff. They can cause more damages than anything else that you maybe have planned for.
That's why the internet, it creates a stain which is not deletable if it's true. Of course, anything that isn't, but it is very different nowadays, so be more careful.
So going back to your point, I think using a tool that allows you to put together not just the financial information, the legal, the tax, the documents, the passwords. Many people, they forget now, when you do wills now, we put a clause in the wills about talking about the password, how you manage digital passwords. Because most of the time now, in the digital, in the password, the key are there for your bank account, for everything. So, and I think that we need to really, and I think the tool that you found, and that we participated to create it as well, and we're going to use it together, I'm sure, with clients, just a way to present it in a way to to explain that this is the future.
Absolutely. I think to sum it up and conclude the proposition that we're working on, and you definitely will hear more about, it is a combination between trusted advisors, people that know what the job means and have a reputation on that. Technology, utilizing in an educated way, because there is nothing more important but security of your data, of your legal and tax wealth. It is the security, it is so important. And combination of network which shares different problem and very different background, avoiding to be pitched all the time while you're doing those, retreatment, for example. So this is something that we both, I know, believe strongly, and we will work to create something that it is worth. Stay tuned to understand basically what is coming, but I really believe in this, and that's why we sat together to create a solution for those problems.
Sure.
Well, thank you very much, Alessandro, and speak soon. Goodbye.